There's been a lot of talk already about what the Reds can and cannot afford. I'll tell you what they can't afford. They can't afford to run it back in the outfield.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. My name is Jeff Carr. I am one half of the Locked On Reds show. Steve Offenbaker will be along here in just a minute. And we are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans and been podcasting about this team now for a few years, every single day talking about the Cincinnati Reds because we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And as much as we love the Reds, we understand that this is for you, the Reds fan that knows what happened. They want to know why. And on today's show, we will be discussing a lot of different things like deferred money. Like, what's that mean for the Reds? Is that something that the Reds could take advantage of this offseason? We'll discuss that a little bit later on, as well as what's going on with the pitching staff. Exactly how much can we trust the durability of the Reds starting pitching staff? That's coming up in a few minutes, but we want to start first with the outfield equation, the outfield question that the Reds cannot afford to answer with, yeah, we'll just run it back the way we had. That's all coming up on today's Locked On Reds podcast that is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's get into this, where this is actually the Q&A portion from our live show on Wednesday. Make sure you join us during our live shows all throughout the offseason. Love having everybody along. So if you were there for this, you're good. But if not, there's a lot of great content coming your way.
Continues to be the question of the day, right? You know, Jimmy says he still sees the Reds making a trade for an everyday outfielder. I do too. I don't see how Nick Krall can have offseason that can be considered to have any legitimacy at all if the Reds don't go get an outfielder, because we're now in year three of needing to go get an outfielder. And we've tried moving everybody around. We tried to sign Jeff Carr to play the outfield. We tried to move everybody, including Tyler Stevenson, to the outfield. None of that stuff has worked. They have been bad. It is not a good plan. And I don't see how they have any credibility if they don't go get an outfielder.
I agree. And I saw a headline, which it looks like it just leads back. Oh, no. Okay. This is a newer article, but headline in the Inquirer says, can the Reds win in 2025 without resources to add much help this winter? That's a much more in-depth article than going into something that Gordon Wittenmyer has already talked about, that the payroll may not change much this offseason. I'd have a hard time. I mean, and look, we're optimistic because of the addition of Terry Francona, looking forward to what he can do with this roster. But if you're going to tell me that they're not going to do much, then that's going to be a lot of problems, because there's a world where I see them doing some sort of thing like they did a couple of off seasons ago, where they cheaped out and they did waiver claims and veteran minimums, and they traded for players that fell out of favor and things like that. And that is just not going to get it done. They have got to make some legitimate moves to go get some guys. And there are some legitimate players on the free agent market that they don't have to trade prospects for. Something that I know that Nick Krall is very hesitant, couldn't think of the word, to do. So I find this to be disheartening to see that there's already narratives going on out there that they're like, what if the Reds don't do anything? How can they succeed in 2025? They need to do something. So
I see that there's mention already of this. We'll work this into the conversation too. This segment 1A here is going to be outfield, I think, Jeff. McClain playing center field yesterday. I like this. I have liked this since they had him in the minor leagues, and we talked about him being a center fielder at UCLA. I've always thought that the Reds not having him keep his outfield skill sharp was the wrong play. So I like that he's playing outfield. I even if you move Matt McClain to the outfield, you still need another outfielder. So circling back around to the money and the resources, we've broken down where they're at right now after the non-tenders and the guys opting out and all the things that have happened with the roster. even if they go, let's just call it what it is. Even if they go cheap, even if Bob hasn't sold enough cabbage to do the things we want him to do, even if all of that is in play, the Reds can still go out and sign Anthony Santander. It can happen and them still be very, very, very under budget, can still keep this team south of $100 million in payroll. And you're talking about an outfielder now with a 2.9 WAR in 2024 for Baltimore. You're talking about a player that had a slash line. While his 235 batting average is not impressive, his 506 slugging is something that I will take at Great American Ballpark. His 44 home runs is something that I will take at Great American Ballpark. This is the type of outfielder I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a reclamation project. I'm not talking about somebody that played 2 games in the outfield in 1986. I am talking about a bona fide, everyday, power hitting, right-handed Major League Baseball outfielder. That is the only way Nick Craw gets even remotely close to a passing grade from me. It's the only way that this Reds team can be considered a legitimate playoff contender in 2025. If they roll with what they got for 2025, I don't see how anybody with any baseball common sense at all points at this team and says, this team could win the division. This team could be so good. Well, there's a lot of coulda, woulda, shouldas with this team. If they don't take action, I just don't see how they have any credibility.
I agree with that. And actually, that's why I think they should go get Teoscar Hernandez, who had a better year and hit more and all this other stuff. But it's likely he
okay,
might
if
be
you
more
could have
expensive than Santander.
Let's play that game for just a minute then, Jeff, because those are probably obviously Juan Soto's the name, right?
Well, yeah.
The Reds aren't
if
signing
you could have
one.
anybody, it's him.
Yeah, obviously that's the name. But we pride ourselves on realism around here most of the time. And that's just simply not happening. So I don't think it's a baseball dream to say this team could sign Santander. And I agree with you also, Teoscar Hernandez. That's the drum I was beating last offseason before the Dodgers screwed everything up. So you get one of those
on the same level.
You get one of those two guys. Why? So do you like Hernandez because you can sign him to a shorter deal? Like what's your thought process there?
I think it's a little bit of a shorter deal, but at the same time, he had 4.3 WAR last year, 137 OPS plus, and I remember, and I admit that I'm a little bit of a slave, slave to current events, but I remember some really good throws he was making in the playoffs for the Dodgers. He was gunning dudes down at the plate from right field, and I feel like that is something that the Reds don't have. And I don't think that Santander is that guy either. As much as he is a lot of what the Reds don't have, Teoscar Hernandez adds another level of an outfield arm that nobody in the Reds outfield currently is a feared thrower. Teoscar Hernandez would be. So he adds that extra layer for me, and I think that's why I would prefer him. I think it's like a little bit over Santander. Like if they sign Santander, I'm going to be super happy. But I would be even maybe a little bit more happy. Maybe, let's say Blanton's level over E.H. Taylor level.
Okay. I get that reference. that reference on my shelf back there. For me, as much as I want it to be Santander, I think, and I don't know why, because he signed with the Dodgers for oodles of money just last offseason, but Teoscar feels almost more reasonable, almost more as a possibility of something could happen, because I think the Reds could throw a big 2-year deal at him with like a 3rd-year club option, and that would get it done versus Santander probably needing a bigger deal, right? A longer deal.
Yeah.
Longer deal.
2 years of age difference between the two, Santander being younger at 29 and Teoscar's 31. So Santander will be 30 next year. Teoscar will be 32. What can we trust from the Reds starting pitching staff, specifically when it comes to Nick Lodolo? With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of high net worth for any net worth individual. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Do you love collecting trading cards, but you hate the price and all that great stuff? Arena Club has created a great alternative. ArenaClub.com is a place where you can go. It's like a digital marketplace to trade baseball, football, basketball, even Pokemon trading cards. And you can get graded gem mint cards, autographs, jersey cards, all that great stuff can be found on Arena Club. You buy the packs digitally. They have these things called slab packs where they have graded gem mint cards that you get to pull. And it's for the fraction of the price that you would pay for like an LE rookie card. And when you get the card that you want on their website, all you have to do is click retrieve, and then you pay a small shipping fee and it's sent to you. Go to arenaclub.com/LockedOnMLB today and use the code LockedOnMLB and you'll get 10% off your first slab pack. Go get yourself a hit over at arenaclub.com/LockedOnMLB and use that code LockedOnMLB for 10% off your first purchase. We are talking Cincinnati Reds baseball here today, all day, every week, all month long, all year long. Make sure you subscribe to get at least 30 minutes of Reds talk in your feed every single day. All right, let's jump into our conversation about the pitching staff and just how much can we trust their durability.
All right, let's get out of the outfield and let's talk pitching for just a little bit. Mo checks in, and we had that little Austin Slater dig from him, but this a much more interesting question, I think, for us to dig into. Mo says, honestly, the most concerning thing for him is Lodolo and the starting pitching staff staying up and healthy. That is a concern. I don't like the trend of the last couple years, Jeff, as far as the injuries to the starting pitching go. As we saw last year, we ended up in a situation where with this team where the Cincinnati Reds did not have a single starting pitcher going in the rotation that started in the rotation opening week. And that's a big problem. That if this team is going to be successful, that cannot repeat itself. And while the Reds made major changes this offseason, new manager, there's a turnover in the coaching staff. There is no turnover in the pitching coaching staff. The pitching coach is still the pitching coach, the pitching coordinator, guru of all things Reds pitching, top to bottom, majors to Daytona, is still pitching Derek Johnson. Cuba. So do you fault him at all? Does Derek Johnson have some responsibility and some culpability in how this pitching staff performed and the injuries and all the things that happened? Or should I continue to direct my anger squarely at the Reds medical staff?
I think that there is definitely some question as to how the Reds develop guys as they come up through the minors. But the problem, I think, even stems past that. Just the way that guys pitch in college and in high school and prep ball and all this other stuff, getting up to that major league level. I mean, think of how long, because like I know that, you know, there are kids in high school. If you're really good in high school, you're not just playing baseball in the spring. You're playing travel ball. Maybe after you graduate, you're going to the Cape Cod League, and you're just playing. And then you go to college, and then maybe you're on a team that's good enough that goes to the College World Series. Like, I think what I'm getting at is pitching development may be a systemic baseball problem and not just a Reds problem in their minor leagues, because while the Reds limit pitching innings as a guy is coming up, is that making up for all of the work they've done to that point? I don't think that is the case. So then you ask the question of yourself, can Hunter Greene, can Andrew Abbott pitch 30 starts in a year? And right now, I don't know that the answer to that question is yes.
It feels like a no. I mean, like, I guess anything is possible, but you got to prove it, right? You know, I always talk about my good buddy, the godfather of Reds non-affiliated internet, which is Bill Lack, who, way back in the day started an email list that led to a lot of things. His saying on that list was always, anytime there was a question like this, is that I'm from Missouri, you got to show me. And that's really where I'm at with this pitching staff. As much as Hunter Greene turned a corner, as much as he showed us that he is that ace that everybody said that he was and was going to be, right? Like, that question's been answered. When Hunter Greene is healthy and on, he is an ace. He is an all-star. He is a number one starter for any team in baseball. But can he do it 32 times a year? Right now, the answer is no. And that's just an honest answer. The answer is no. And the same goes for Andrew Abbott. The same goes for Nick Lodolo. They're great. They're good. They're definitely quality major league starting pitchers. Can they do it 32 times in a year? Nick Lodolo's answer is definitely no. Abbott's answer is probably no, until they prove otherwise.
I am hopeful on Abbott because he has upped his start totals year over year, 21 to 25. Greene gives me a bit of concern because his rookie year, he had 24. Then in 2023, he had 22. And then last year he had 26. So it's like, okay, you're kind of making improvements, but it's like, according to Baseball Reference, in a 162 game season, if there are no injuries, a pitcher could have 34 starts. And it feels like 34 is, I don't know that we could see that from anybody on the roster. I think 30 feels like the ceiling, at least this next year. I don't know that Hunter Greene can get. I think Andrew Abbott's more likely to give us 30 starts than Hunter Greene, just because of the way that Hunter Greene pitches. There's going to be some time when he needs to hit the IL for, mechanical reasons.
Right. I mean, you always hear talking about stretching a guy out, right? And building his innings. As you mentioned, Hunter Greene, 26 starts for the Reds in 2024. Andrew Abbott, 25 starts in 2024. Nick Lodolo, 21 starts. None of those guys should jump to 34. Their arms will fall off. So, yeah. I mean, I think you could see 28 to 29 starts out of Hunter Greene and be cool. Andrew Abbott could go the same range. I feel like 30's pushing it. Nick Lodolo should be nowhere near 30 starts.
And he probably
his cap should be 26 to 27. You just can't put that big a jump on these arms for guys that are pitching with maximum effort. So I don't know, Jeff. If Hunter Greene has a completely healthy year and there's only one elbow fatigue, IL, whatever we're calling it,
right?
If there's only one of those and he ups his numbers, same for Andrew Abbott, then maybe 2 years out from now, when we're talking about the 2026 baseball season, you could see 30 starts out of somebody. I don't think anybody on this staff's making 30 starts in 2025.
Well, and I also wonder too, and kind of taking it back to Mo's initial question, Mo was really focused on Nick Lodolo. I'm worried specifically about him because of the mechanical change, because of how he grips his curveball, how that evolved in 2024, because early on in the season, it was the way that he'd always done it. He was really good. And then blisters became an issue again. And then after the blister healed, he tried to change it so that he did not get a blister from throwing the curveball. And when he did that, he became, I wouldn't say completely ineffective, but he was much worse than he was in the first half of the season. I mean, we're talking about a guy that coming into the month of June, we were wondering if Nick Lodolo was the ace of this staff. And then past that point, we knew the answer was no. And it was just because we saw so many performances where his first time through the order, he killed it. His second time through the order, he couldn't find the strike zone. And if he ventured into the third time through the order, he was trying to find the strike zone ineffectively, and he was getting clobbered. So there was a lot of what does he look like for the future, not just as a health question, but when he is healthy, how does he grip his curveball? What does he actually do to get hitters out? Because without the curveball, he doesn't have an out pitch. He can locate the fastball fine, but his fastball is not his out pitch. It's the breaking ball. And what does that look like for him coming into this next year? Like, I almost, and I don't know, and I'm sure Chris Welsh would be able to tell us this, like, if you have past problems with getting blisters on a certain spot in your finger when you make a grip for a certain pitch, is that something you can just train yourself to not get, or is that something you can train yourself to pitch through the callus? Because I think that's kind of what the
there's a couple answers to this, and Chris and I have talked about this. there's a couple options. The option is he spends the whole offseason with a new grip and finds where the command goes with that, because it was clear last season when he changed his grip, he didn't know where the ball was going half the time.
Right.
He just didn't know. So he's either working on that, or it's the other thing you said, which is you keep pitching the way that you pitch and hope that you can power through, that the callus develops and you can get a feel for the baseball while it's happening. So those are his options. I suspect that they're working on a modified grip to try and prevent this from happening again. And that's how he's spending his offseason. That would be my guess. Obviously I haven't talked to Lodolo about this, but I would guess that's where they are right now, trying to do some modifications to the way he grips the baseball so that when spring training hits, he's comfortable and knows what the ball is going to do.
And there's actually a number to back that up, because in his rookie season, when he had the normal grip for his breaking pitch, he hit 19 batters in 19 starts. He made 2 more starts in 2024, and he hit 1 less batter. So you could tell that he wasn't doing the back foot breaker. The back foot breaker just disappeared.
He was trying. It was out over the plate.
Yeah, the back foot breaker became the meatball breaker, and that's when everybody started clobbering the pitches that he was throwing. He didn't have as many home runs, but he gave up a lot of hits. I mean, his hits per nine, 7.9 hits per nine last year, which is not bad, but it's also not good either. Like, there's numbers about him that are very intriguing and positive, and he's still Nick Lodolo, but I don't think he was the guy that we were seeing until he really got hurt in 2023, where he was having 12 strikeouts per nine. That came down quite a bit last year, from 12 strikeouts per nine to just 9 strikeouts. It was just still a strikeout in an inning. That's fine. But the longevity thing is almost a secondary concern for me, in that when Nick Lodolo is healthy, what Nick Lodolo are we going to see? Would deferred money make a difference? And is that something that the Reds would do? I'm going to tell you why that's not the case coming up next. You can tackle the NFL action over on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything that you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, and you could check out all the latest stats, the view, the live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And while you're there, you can also check out some baseball action, like, futures, next year's World Series odds. The value right now on the Reds will never be better. 60-1 currently to win the 2025 World Series. Terry Francona says, hold my beer. Just saying. Might be good to get in now before the Reds shopping spree begins. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. No matter what you're going to, if it's football, basketball, hockey, if you're going to a show, if you're going to a comedy event, a concert, Game Time's got you covered, because they've got amazing last-minute deals. The closer that you get to the beginning of the event happening, the better the deals get. And plus, if you're going to a place that you don't know, like maybe you're not going to Great American Ballpark, maybe you're going out of town, they got the view from your seat, so you know exactly what you'll be looking at. You're not going to be surprised with some kind of concrete pole or something like that. They're going to show it right in the app. Download the Game Time app today and create an account and use that promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So you're going to get great last minute deals and $20 off your first purchase when you begin your Game Time journey today. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. If you can't watch Locked On Reds on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcasting app. Literally, we're on all of them. Make sure you subscribe there today. All right, let's finish up our conversation about this Reds off season and looking forward. And can the Reds really look forward and push out some contracts?
Before we get out of here today, there's one more topic that I think is kind of fun in as much as it makes me angry. So I'm going to get worked up. But this from Mike. Just like the Dodgers did with Ohtani, can any team, including the Reds, sign someone like Soto for a bunch of deferred money? At that point, it would just be if Juan wants to play in Cincinnati or not. A couple things here. This should be illegal. Baseball needs to make this never happen again. The Dodgers wrecked an entire free agent market with this crap, and I hate it. That being said, you're absolutely right. Any team can do that. I don't think the Cincinnati Reds will ever do that again. I think that the King Griffey Jr. contract and them having to pay Junior millions of dollars every year, well past his retirement
before that as well.
Right. Well past his expiration date. I don't think the Reds will ever do this again. Just like you'll never see them give anybody a 10-year contract ever again. It will never happen again. Caveat, asterisk, with this ownership group. As long as there's a Castellini in charge, there will be no deferred money. There will be no 10-year contracts. There will be none of that because they're not that forward thinking. They're not that progressive. They're not that savvy.
And that's why the Dodgers did this. The Dodgers ownership group is diverse, rich, a lot of rich guys on that, a lot of rich folks on that ownership group, but it's big. The Reds ownership group is diverse. It is not as rich, and it is nowhere near as big. And because of that, they don't have the ability to project out what their financial commitment's going to look like. Mm-hmm. And I don't think for a ownership group that I believe the possibility of selling the team down the road, like in a couple of years, I don't think that chance is zero. I don't think it's a very high chance, but I don't think it's zero. I don't think they're going to put something on the books where a new ownership group is acquiring the team and, oh, by the way, you got this guy that you're going to be paying for like 15, 20 years. Like, that's not going to be something that they do. I know that is something that I've thought about in the past. So it's like, well, you gave it to Griffey, you gave it to Arroyo. Why don't you give it to other players that you think are going to be franchise changing if you believe it gives you a better chance of actually signing that guy? The reason for that is they run the financials of the team very differently. And we like to joke, you didn't sell enough cabbage to go pay Juan Soto, but they have told us before the thing that I think gets misquoted a lot, that they run it as a nonprofit. I think the only money that they use is money that they made off the team. If they make money from the Reds, they use that money on the Reds. They don't use money from Castellini distribution or whatever their company is called.
From the produce stand. They don't use the produce stand money.
Yeah. So that's the hard part with all of this, where it makes sense to us. This money in a large part when it comes to you and me is very fake because we don't understand this type of money. This is a lot more money than we will ever know. So it's easy for us to say, yes, they should be able to do this, but that's not something the Castellinis will ever do.
No, I absolutely agree. And I also don't think that the Castellinis will ever sell this team. The Reds are a victim of bad luck in the ownership department, Jeff, because if the Linder ownership group could have held on like 5 more years from when they sold,
they just sold it
we would have
for $1 billion.
We would be having a whole different conversation. The team would have been worth, $600 or $700 million at that point, and Castellini's would even have been able to sniff around this team. But here we are. So I think we just got to learn to live within the confines created by the vegetation empire. And that is where we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today, Jeff. Go click the like button if you haven't done it yet. Jump down there and click the notification bell, the subscribe button, all the things, so that every time we have a show, you don't miss it and you get to talk Reds baseball with us, because we love talking baseball with you. Again, we teased it throughout the show. We'll be talking with a Red Scout coming up here in a couple days, Thursday or Friday. Look for that in your feeds. Another reason why that subscribe button is important. We're going to get that show done, and we're going to keep you locked on Reds every single day.